The chandeliers of the crescent hall glittered like cages of stars, their light scattering across marble floors polished to a mirror sheen. Music swelled. Violins, flutes, the soft brush of silk and laughter. It was the autumn court ball in Charleston, South Carolina, where every noble family of the Eastern Pack had gathered beneath banners of crimson and gold to celebrate the changing season and the choosing of the alpha's mate. In the farthest shadow of the ballroom stood Elena Cross, clutching the edge of her mask as if it might keep her invisible. She was 21, the youngest daughter of Baron Cross, and in the eyes of everyone here, a disappointment. Too plain, too quiet, too scarred. A childhood illness had left faint, pale marks across one side of her face, and in a court obsessed with beauty and bloodline, that was enough to make her invisible. Invisible or worse, a joke. "Did you see her dress?" whispered a woman behind her. "Looks like she stitched it herself." "Maybe she did," another voice snickered. "Her father's out of favor, isn't he? Poor thing. She'll never be chosen." Elena didn't flinch. She had learned long ago how to stand very still and let cruelty pass through her like smoke. At the center of the ballroom, the musicians changed their rhythm, something slower, heavier, meant for the opening waltz. The crowd hushed. The air shifted. He had arrived. The great doors opened, and Alpha Lucian Thorn entered. Even without seeing him, Elena could feel the room bend around his presence, the sudden quiet, the collective breath drawn in. He was taller than she'd imagined, broad-shouldered, his black hair pulled back, his sharp features shadowed by the gold half-mask he wore. Every step he took across the marble floor echoed with command. People bowed. Women lowered their eyes. Men straightened their spines. He was the alpha of the Crescent Dominion, powerful, feared, and newly returned from the Northern Wars. And tonight he would choose his queen. Elena's heart stuttered. She'd never dreamed she'd matter to someone like him. But still a small, foolish part of her wished, just for one night, that he might look her way. She turned to leave before the mockery began again, before someone noticed that the Baron's plain daughter had dared show her face at the Alpha's masquerade. But as she reached the edge of the hall, a voice stopped her. "Leaving already?" She froze. The voice was deep, quiet, but edged with something that trembled inside her bones. Slowly she turned. Lucian Thorn stood a few paces away. I didn't mean to intrude," she stammered. "I was just—" He tilted his head. "Hiding." Her throat went dry. "Maybe." He stepped closer. The scent of cedar and winter air clung to him, cold and wild. "You don't belong in the shadows," he said softly. A laugh, brittle and uncertain, escaped her. "No one else seems to agree." His eyes caught the light through his mask, glinting like liquid amber. "They don't see what I see." Elena's fingers trembled around the fabric of her skirt. "And what do you see, my lord?" Lucian's gaze lingered on her face, the faint scars she tried to hide beneath strands of hair. "Strength," he said. "And something they've all forgotten how to recognize, truth." She couldn't breathe. "Dance with me." The words came not as an invitation, but a command wrapped in gentleness. "I can't," she whispered. "Everyone will stare." "They already are," he said, extending his hand. "Let them learn what beauty truly is." For a moment she couldn't move. Then, almost against her will, she placed her hand in his. His touch was warm, firm, and when he led her onto the marble floor, the music seemed to pause for a single heartbeat before rushing forward again, swelling to fill the silence that had fallen across the court. Every eye turned toward them. Every whisper died. Elena's steps faltered at first, but Lucian's arm steadied her. He moved with lethal grace, guiding her through the dance as though the rhythm had been written just for them. "You're trembling," he murmured. "I'm terrified." "Of them." She swallowed hard. "Of you." His breath brushed her ear. "Good." The word shouldn't have sounded tender, but it did. They moved in perfect sync now, her skirts sweeping against his boots, her heart sinking with the pounding of his pulse beneath her palm. The air shimmered with something that wasn't quite magic, but older, primal. When the final note hung in the air, Lucian didn't bow or release her hand. Instead, he turned toward the silent crowd, his voice echoing through the hall. "This night was meant for choosing," he said. "And I have chosen." Gasps rippled through the room. Lucian lifted Elena's hand, pressing it to his heart. "This woman, whom you mocked and hid from your sight, will stand beside me as queen of the Crescent Dominion." The silence that followed was thunderous. Elena's breath hitched. "Lucian." He turned toward her, his expression unreadable behind the mask. "Say nothing. Just trust me." "But why?" she whispered. His voice softened, almost a confession. "Because you remind me of someone I failed to save." Before she could speak again, he kissed her hand, and the crowd erupted. Some cheered. Others hissed, scandalized. Elena stood frozen, her heart splintering under the weight of disbelief. She could still feel the warmth of his lips against her skin as the world blurred around her. She didn't know if this was a miracle or a punishment, only that the Alpha's eyes had seen her when no one else ever had. And deep in that gaze she sensed something dark, something that had nothing to do with mercy. 3 days after the masquerade, Charleston's Crescent Hall no longer rang with music and laughter. Instead, whispers slid through its marble corridors like ghosts. The scandal had spread faster than wildfire. The Alpha had chosen the Baron's ugly daughter, the scarred girl who didn't belong. Some said Lucian Thorne had lost his mind. Others claimed dark magic had clouded his judgment. And a few, the cruelest of all, said it was pity. Elena heard every version. She moved through the gilded halls of the Alpha's residence with quiet dignity, her slippered steps echoing faintly beneath the vaulted ceilings. Her room overlooked the Charleston harbor, where fog drifted across the water like pale smoke. She could hear the gulls cry at dawn, the ships groaning against their moorings. But even the sea sounded different now, lonelier, heavier. Her life had changed overnight, but she felt like a guest in a dream she couldn't wake from. A knock came at the door. "Enter," she said softly. The door opened, and Lady Sabine Vale, the Alpha's steward, and it seemed his fiercest critic, stepped inside. Her perfume arrived first, lavender and venom. "My lady," Sabine said with a bow that wasn't quite sincere. "The council awaits you in the great hall." Elena's pulse quickened. "The council. They wish to welcome you." The pause between words was sharp enough to cut glass. Elena adjusted her gown, pale blue silk that Lucian's attendants had delivered that morning. She didn't feel like a queen in it. She felt like a child wearing someone else's skin. When she reached the great hall, every pair of eyes turned toward her. 12 councilmen sat in a crescent around the marble floor, their expressions unreadable. Lucian stood at the center, his black coat immaculate, his mask gone. Without it, he was almost too striking, cold, beautiful, his gray eyes like winter steel. He turned when she entered, his voice softer than the silence that filled the hall. "Elena." She lowered her head. "My lord. Come here." She obeyed, walking across the echoing floor until she stood beside him. He reached for her hand, a small gesture, but it sent a shiver up her arm. His thumb brushed her skin once, grounding her. "The council wishes to discuss your coronation," he said. "Discuss?" murmured one of the elders. "Surely, my Alpha, you mean delay." Lucian's eyes sharpened. "No." A murmur spread among the nobles. Elena stood silent, her hand still in his. Another elder, silver-haired, with a scar that traced his jaw, leaned forward. "Forgive me, Alpha, but the people question your choice. The Baron's daughter brings no alliance, no dowry, no wolf blood. The crown demands strength." Lucian's voice stayed calm, but the air itself seemed to tighten around him. "You question my strength." "No, my lord. We question hers." The words hit Elena like a blow. She tried to pull her hand back, but Lucian didn't release her. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment the sharpness in his expression softened. "Then you haven't been watching closely enough," he said quietly. The elder frowned. "Meaning?" Lucian's gaze flicked toward Elena. Show them. She froze. My lord, Show them, he repeated, gentler this time. She swallowed hard. The room spun with silence. Then, closing her eyes, she inhaled deeply. She reached inward, toward the faint, unfamiliar pulse that had begun to stir inside her since the night of the dance. It was small at first, like the flicker of a candle. But when she focused, it grew. A rhythm that wasn't quite her heartbeat, deeper and older, alive beneath her skin. The torches lining the walls flared. The marble beneath her feet thrummed faintly. A gasp rippled through the chamber as the scent of iron and wild roses filled the air. Elena opened her eyes, and the faint glow that pulsed within them was unmistakable. Gold. Lucian smiled, not with pride but with recognition. You see, he said softly. Even the moon remembers her blood. One of the councilmen stood, trembling. That's impossible. She's human. No, Lucian said. She's not. The word hung in the air like thunder. Elena's knees nearly gave way. What are you saying? He turned toward her, his eyes unreadable. Your mother was one of us, Elena. Half-wolf, born of the crescent line. The same line that runs in me. The hall erupted in murmurs, shock rippling through the crowd like wind through fire. That makes her, someone began. My equal, Lucian said. Elena stared at him, her pulse roaring in her ears. You knew. I suspected, he said quietly. The night we danced, I felt the bond take root. Her breath caught. You chose me because of blood. Lucian's gaze softened. No. I chose you because you looked at me and didn't flinch. The chamber fell silent again. Leave us, Lucian commanded, and the council, reluctant, muttering, obeyed. Their footsteps faded until only the two of them remained. Elena turned away, trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Because the truth would have terrified you. It terrifies me now. He stepped closer, his voice low. You think I don't understand fear, Elena? I see it in every mirror. The Alpha's crown isn't power. It's a curse. But with you, it doesn't feel like one. She wanted to believe him. But her body was still shaking, the echo of power still burning beneath her skin. I don't know what's happening to me, she whispered. You're awakening, Lucian said. And when the moon rises again, the court will see what I saw from the beginning. She lifted her gaze toward him. And what is that? He brushed a stray strand of hair from her scarred cheek. His touch so gentle it made her shiver. A queen, he murmured. But not the kind they expect. Outside, thunder rolled across the harbor, low and distant. The air between them seemed to hum with the same electricity. Elena stepped back, her heart pounding. If I'm like you, if there's wolf blood in me, what happens when it wakes? Lucian's answer was barely audible. Then no one will ever be able to hurt you again. The way he said it, protective, desperate, frightened her more than the storm. Because she realized then that Lucian Thorne wasn't saving her from the court. He was saving her for something. And whatever it was, it had already begun. The moon hung swollen and red above the Charleston harbor, casting ripples of silver fire across the dark water. The tide whispered secrets to the shore, and the air tasted like iron and storm. Inside the Alpha's manor, every torch burned low. The servants had long gone to their quarters. Silence wrapped the corridors, heavy and waiting. Elena stood before the mirror in her chamber. Her fingers pressed to the faint pulse of light beneath her skin. The golden glow she'd revealed before the council had not faded. It lived there now, in her veins, behind her ribs, in the quickening of her breath. Lucian's words echoed in her head. You're awakening. But awakening into what? She touched her reflection. The scar across her cheek caught the moonlight, and for a moment she imagined it glowing, a mark of something ancient. Not ugly, not broken. A scar that had meaning. A knock broke her reverie. Come in, she said, her voice steady though her heart was not. The door opened to reveal Lucian himself, unarmored. His coat discarded, the the faintest shadow of exhaustion under his eyes. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. He smiled, tired and dangerous. "And yet, here I am." Elena turned away from the mirror. "If anyone sees, let them," he interrupted softly. "You're my betrothed now. There's nothing left to hide." The word betrothed still felt foreign in her mouth. Sharp, unreal. He stepped closer. "How are you feeling?" She hesitated. "Strange. My senses are louder. I can hear the tide from here. The heartbeat of the guards below." Lucien nodded. "The blood is remembering itself." "The blood," she repeated, bitter. "You make it sound like I was never really me." He frowned. "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You told me my mother was one of you, that I carry the crescent line. But you never said what that means. Not truly." Lucien's expression darkened. "It means power. It means danger." "Danger to whom?" He hesitated. Her voice dropped. "To you." He looked at her then, and she saw it, the flicker of fear he never showed the world. "Elena," he said, barely above a whisper, "there's something I didn't tell you." The air in the room grew colder. "What is it?" He exhaled, his hands curling at his sides. "Your mother didn't just carry wolf blood. She carried the first blood, the blood of the Crescent Queen, the one who bound the packs under the moon. It was her gift and her curse. That's why the council feared her. That's why she was hunted." Elena's heart pounded. "Hunted by whom?" "By my father," he said quietly. "The former Alpha." She froze. "My father believed no woman should hold that power. He tried to take it from her. She fled the Crescent Court, fled here to your father's lands before she vanished." Elena's mouth went dry. "You knew all this." "I suspected," he admitted. "The night I saw you at the masquerade, I felt the bond. I thought it was the goddess calling me to protect what remained of her bloodline. And now," she whispered. Lucien's voice broke. "Now I think it was a warning." A gust of wind slammed the windows open. The candles flickered, their flames bending toward the sea. From the courtyard below came a distant cry. Not human. Lucien's head snapped toward the sound. "They've come." "Who?" "The council," he said grimly. "They've chosen to move against us. They believe your blood will corrupt the pack, that the Crescent power should die with you." Lena's pulse raced. "Then we have to go." Lucien shook his head. "If you run, they'll hunt you. If you fight, you'll unleash what sleeps inside you. You don't know what that will cost." "Then tell me," she pleaded. His eyes met hers, storm gray, burning. "It cost your mother her soul." She stepped back, the truth hitting her like a wave. "You mean she's gone?" he said softly. "Consumed by the power she tried to control. That's why I can't lose you to it too." Thunder cracked above them. The manor trembled. "Lucien," she whispered, "what if I'm already too late?" He looked at her and froze. The glow beneath her skin was spreading, gold turning to crimson, her veins burning with light. The wind around her thickened until the room seemed to bend. "Elena!" She clutched her chest, gasping. The pain was unbearable, like fire threading through her bones. The moonlight outside flared, blinding. Lucien caught her before she fell. His arms tight around her trembling body. "Breathe. Stay with me." Her voice was a broken whisper. "It hurts." I know. His voice cracked. "It's the blood claiming its right. I can't." "Yes, you can," he said fiercely. "Listen to me, Elena. You're not your mother. You're stronger than she ever was." The light burst from her in a sudden wave, knocking him backward. The window shattered, moonlight flooding the room like water. When it dimmed, Elena stood at the center of the floor, trembling. Her scars, the ones that had marked her since childhood, were gone. Her eyes glowed molten gold. "Elena," Lucien breathed. She looked at him, her voice no longer trembling but layered. Hers and another's, something ancient beneath it. He was wrong, she said softly. The blood doesn't destroy. Lucian swallowed hard. Then what does it do? It remembers. Her gaze lifted toward the moon outside the shattered window. And it's calling for me. Lucian's voice broke. Elena, don't answer it. But the wind was already shifting. Far beyond the harbor, wolves began to howl, not in anger but in reverence. Elena's eyes softened, her face illuminated by the moon's glow. I think my mother left something unfinished. Lucian rose, his voice filled with dread and longing. And you mean to finish it? Yes, she said, even if it breaks me. He took a step forward, desperation in his voice. If you go to that call, the pack will never let you return. She smiled faintly, sad, certain. Then let them call me what I was always meant to be. He whispered, What's that? Her answer was almost a sigh. The moon's heir. And with that, the light swallowed her, the queen reborn beneath the blood-red sky. The storm broke over Charleston like a prophecy. Lightning licked the harbor. Thunder shook the foundations of the Alpha's manor, and the moon burned red above the water. Lucian stood at the highest balcony, rain cutting across his face, eyes fixed on the horizon where Elena had vanished hours ago. The sea glowed faintly, the same eerie gold that had poured from her veins. Below him the city burned. The council's enforcers had turned on one another, wolves tearing through the streets, driven mad by the call that pulsed through every drop of crescent blood. The sound was everywhere now, a low, rhythmic hum that rose from the ground itself. Lucian could feel it in his bones. Her power. He turned as Lady Sabine Vale entered, her gown soaked, her face pale beneath the flickering torchlight. My lord, the lower quarters are in chaos, she said. The people think it's an omen. The Crescent Queen's return. Lucian's voice was quiet, dangerous. It's not an omen. It's Elena. Sabine's jaw tightened. You let her awaken. I didn't let her. I couldn't stop her. Sabine stepped closer. You know what she's becoming. The Queen's blood doesn't unite, it consumes. If she finishes the rite of ascension, there will be no Alpha, no pack. Only her. Lucian turned toward her, rain dripping from his hair. Then let it be her. I would rather burn beneath her reign than live under the council's chains. You're blinded by her, Sabine hissed. You always were. Maybe, he said softly. But she's the first light this house has seen in generations. Thunder cracked again, but this time it wasn't from the sky. The earth itself trembled. Sabine's eyes widened. She's here. The great doors of the manor burst open. Elena stepped inside. Her gown clung to her in tatters, soaked by rain, her hair loose and dark against her skin. But her eyes, gods, her eyes, glowed gold like a forge, and every shadow in the room bent toward her as though the air itself obeyed her will. The guards fell to their knees without command. Lucian's breath caught. Elena! She looked at him, and for a moment, he saw the woman he had held in his arms, trembling, human, uncertain. But then she blinked, and that softness vanished beneath something older. The council hunts me, she said quietly. They want to end what began before either of us was born. I'll protect you. Her smile was faint, almost sad. You can't protect me from what I am. Sabine stepped forward, voice trembling. Your Majesty, if that's what you are, you bring ruin with every step. The city's tearing itself apart. Elena's gaze flicked toward her. The torchlight dimmed. Ruin or rebirth, she murmured. The Crescent has lived in chains for too long. The blood remembers, Lady Vale. It remembers freedom. Sabine shuddered, taking a step back. Lucian approached slowly. Elena, listen to me. This power, it killed your mother. It'll kill you too. Her voice softened. My mother ran from it. I won't. He reached for her hand, but the air between them pulsed with energy, throwing him back. He landed hard against the marble floor, blood at the corner of his mouth. Lucian, she cried, rushing to him, and in that moment her control faltered. The power that had been building inside her lashed outward, a golden shockwave that shattered the windows and sent the chandeliers crashing down. The manor filled with the sound of breaking glass and howling wind. Elena dropped to her knees beside him, hands trembling. "I didn't mean." "I know," he gasped, gripping her wrist. "You have to stop this before it consumes you." "I can't. It's too strong." "Then let me take it." She stared at him, horrified. "If you try, it'll kill you." He smiled faintly. "It already is." Tears welled in her golden eyes. "Why would you do that?" "Because I'd rather die as your equal than live as your shadow." The storm outside roared louder, thunder rolling like drums of war. Lucian drew her hand to his chest, pressing it over his heart. "You said the blood remembers. Then remember me when it's done." "Lucian, please." Before she could pull away, he whispered the old words, words older than the crescent line, words that carried the weight of every alpha before him. The air cracked with light. The bond that had tied their souls from the first dance ignited. Elena screamed as the energy tore through her. Not pain but release. Gold fire poured from her skin into his, searing their marks into one. Lucian's body shook violently. His eyes burned silver for a single impossible moment, then dimmed. When the light faded, he was on his knees, his breathing ragged. Elena caught him, her hands glowing faintly. "Lucian, what did you do?" He looked up at her, his face pale, his voice fading. "I gave it somewhere to rest." "Rest?" "The bloodline," he whispered. "The curse. It's in me now." Her heart splintered. "No." He smiled weakly. "You're free." Tears slid down her cheeks, falling into the rain-soaked marble. "I didn't want to be free. Not without you." He touched her face, fingers trembling. "Then remember what I told you at the masquerade." Her voice broke. "That you chose me." He nodded. "And I still do." His hand fell away. The world went still. For a long moment there was no sound but the rain. Then the gold in Elena's eyes dimmed, replaced by a dull human blue. Power was gone. She laid his body gently on the marble floor, her tears falling onto his blood-stained collar. Outside, the storm finally began to clear. In the quiet that followed, Elena lifted her gaze toward the moon, once red, now white again. "You wanted a queen," she whispered. "You have one." She rose slowly, her expression no longer fragile, no longer afraid. Lady Sabine and the others watched in silence as Elena turned toward the broken doors, the wind lifting her hair like a crown. "Where are you going?" Sabine asked. Elena's voice was calm, almost serene. "To finish what he started." And as she stepped into the night, lightning flared one last time, not in destruction but in reverence. The queen had risen. The dawn over Charleston came like a sigh after weeping. The sky was pale lavender, streaked with gold, and the harbor was still except for the slow curling of mist over the water. Smoke rose in thin threads from the city below, the remnants of a night that had nearly ended the Crescent Dominion. At the heart of the ruins stood Elena Thorne, not the frightened baron's daughter who had once hid behind her mask, but a woman carved from light and grief. The crown she wore wasn't made of metal. It was the faint shimmer of moonlight resting on her brow, the mark of a queen born through loss. Behind her, the Alpha's manor was quiet. Inside, Lucian's body lay wrapped in white linen, watched over by the oldest wolves of the Crescent line. His sacrifice had saved them all, binding the wild power that had torn through the packs, silencing the madness. But it had also broken her heart. Elena knelt beside the sea wall where she and Lucian had once walked after the masquerade. The air still carried the scent of cedar and salt, and she could almost hear his voice in the wind. "You don't belong in the shadows." Her fingers brushed the stone. "Then why did you stay in the dark for me?" No answer came, only the soft crash of the tide. A shadow moved behind her. "Your Majesty," said a familiar voice. It was Lady Sabine, her expression cautious, weary. "The council has been dissolved. The packs await your word." Elena rose slowly, her gown damp with sea spray. "My word," she said quietly. Sabine bowed her head. "To know who we are now. What we serve." Elena turned toward the rising sun. "Not me," she said. "Not anymore. We serve the moon and what it asks of us." "And what does it ask?" Elena's eyes softened. "To stop living like beasts who need crowns." Sabine frowned. "Then what will you be?" Elena smiled faintly. "A beginning." She started walking down the steps that led to the sand. The tide lapped at her bare feet, the water warm with morning. The mist began to part, and in the distance wolves stood along the dunes, dozens of them silent, watching her. Their eyes glowed faintly, but not with fear. With reverence. Elena lifted her chin. The wind carried her voice, steady and low. "You are not bound by the Alpha's chain anymore," she said. "No one is. The blood that built this dominion took too much from us. Our freedom, our love, our peace. It ends today." The wolves shifted, some kneeling, some lowering their heads, the weight of centuries trembling through their bodies. Sabine stepped beside her. "If you break the chain, the packs will scatter. You'll lose control." Elena turned to her, her voice almost tender. "That's the point. Control is not peace." Thunder murmured far away. Not a storm, but the slow echo of something vast releasing its hold. She took a deep breath and raised her hands toward the rising sun. The faint glow beneath her skin, the remnant of her power, began to rise, spreading like liquid light. The wolves howled as the glow rippled across the horizon. The chains that had bound their blood, the invisible oaths that tied them to alpha after alpha, began to dissolve. For the first time in centuries they were free. Elena's body trembled. The light was leaving her. Not violently this time, but gently, like the tide receding from the shore. When it faded completely, she sagged against the railing, breathless but alive. Sabine caught her arm. "What have you done?" "Given them what Lucien wanted," she whispered. "A world without masters." Sabine's voice broke. "And what will become of you?" Elena looked toward the sun, her hair glowing gold in its light. "I'll find him." Sabine's lips parted. "Lucien." Elena smiled faintly. "He gave me his soul once. The least I can do is bring it home." She stepped back into the surf. The water reached her knees, then her waist. The glow around her began again, faint at first, then brighter, until it was hard to look at her at all. The wolves howled once more, a sound that was both farewell and blessing. And as the first full light of day touched the sea, she whispered his name. "Lucien." The ocean answered with a shimmer of silver, and she was gone. Only the tide remained, rolling softly against the sand. Weeks later, when the city began to rebuild, fishermen swore they sometimes saw a figure walking across the waves beneath the full moon, a woman in a gown of light, her hair like ink, her eyes glowing faint gold. And beside her, always, a great silver wolf. Some called them ghosts, others called them gods. But those who remembered whispered another name, not out of fear but devotion. The Queen and the Alpha, bound forever, not by curse or crown, but by the love that remade the world.